Welcome back to another episode of Shift with Elena. God, in this conversation, I am joined by Dr. Keating. He's a powerhouse in learning and development, a keynote speaker and author. He has two books. The first one is The Trusted Learning Advisor, and the latest one, Hidden Value. He shares his story from humble beginnings to dropping out of high school, to working in fast food, to then becoming a powerhouse in our space of talent development. As a professional in the space, I really respect his point of view and perspective. I think it's fresh, unique, and just different, which is very much needed in this day and age in our profession. He really delves into evolution from being an order taker to becoming a trusted advisor, building credibility, and truly driving organizational value. So if you're interested in the space, if you're in this space as an HR and L&D professional, this episode is definitely for you. Check it out and let me know what you think and come back for more. Dr. Keating, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited. I've been a fan for quite some time. I've been connected to you on LinkedIn since 2022. And it's funny how things come about because, Damon Limby, of course, from Learned, introduced us. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I've seen your name. I've seen you pop up. I've seen you on LinkedIn. And here we are, like almost 4 years later, I guess, since we've been connected, that we're doing this. So this is awesome. I'm very excited.
Yeah, speaking of connections, it's a funny full circle because I worked for Damon 20 some years ago, actually in 2000. And then after I left, the internet, or at least LinkedIn, was never around. So I didn't even know that Learn It was still around. I just didn't think about it. And he popped into my head maybe 8 or 9 months ago. For some reason, I guess I was thinking about my history. And then it's the way the world works is so weird because then he popped up on LinkedIn. And I was like, is this the same Damon Limby? And he still runs Learn It? And I reached out to him and said, hey, I doubt you remember me, but I worked for you 20 years ago. And I just wanted to say thank you for helping me start my career. And he's like, yes, I was just talking about you. And now another full story circle. Now here you and I are.
Yeah, it's I love that, it's things just come into place and it's beautiful. And and I always say I'm so grateful to be connected with such amazing people. And it's like, you always that's how I measure success. Part of it is like, who's in not just maybe not your immediate circle, but who's like in your area, in your little
Your
tribe, in your
orbit.
industry, the orbit, and then you get connected to these amazing people, and it's beautiful. And yeah, I'm just really grateful. So listen, before we dive into all the amazing things that you're doing from a learning and development perspective, all the things you're kind of talking about, your book, The Trusted Learning Advisor, take me back to maybe the learned days or before that, however far you want to take us, but give me a little bit of a snapshot of your career story so people get an understanding kind of where are you coming from and why you do the work that you do today.
I think it's important context to understand that I struggled significantly with learning growing up. Maybe not learning so much as school. I struggled really hard with school. My father was in the military, so we moved around quite a bit. I grew up in Germany, Korea, just a lot of places, and eventually landed in the US when I was around 13 or 14. And so my education system was not equal to where I was. One teacher would tell my parents I'm above average and I should skip a grade, and the next teacher would say I have a learning disability and I should be held back. So my parents struggled with understanding what to do. I significantly struggled, and eventually the bullying and the anxiety and everything became too much that I had to make a decision to drop out of high school to essentially save myself. And so I only completed about 2 months of 10th grade. And so I'm a high school dropout. And when that happened, I was told, you'll never amount to anything. You're going to work in fast food for the rest of your life. As if, first of all, there's something wrong with working in fast food because there's not. And so it put this stigma or these ideas of this box that they were trying to fit me in. And I did exactly that. I went and got a job in fast food. But I knew there was something more that I wanted to do or to be. I just had no idea what it was. Long story short, one day I'm reading the newspaper because I'm old enough where that's when you would find your jobs in the newspaper. And there was an ad for a Microsoft Office trainer. And I thought, how hard could that be to teach Office? I use it every day. Can't be hard. I go to the interview and it was the worst interview I could have ever possibly given. I was so nervous. I coughed through the whole thing. I didn't even finish it. Finally, the interviewer said, you're really sick." And I was like, "Yes, I am, but I really want to be here." So they sent me home. They called me back a week later and said, "We'd like to offer you the job." So I was 17, and my job was traveling around the country teaching Social Security Administration offices for the US government how to use Microsoft Office 2000. It was rolling out, and this was a contract with CompUSA. I had no idea what I was doing. I was the worst trainer that ever existed. I probably did so much damage. That's part of my penance now for staying in the field, is to correct all the damage I did. But it clicked for me. The first time that I was teaching something and the light went on in somebody's eyes and they got it. It was the first time that I had ever felt like I had value. Like there was something that I could do that was meaningful, that meant something to somebody else. And it was a little bit of a high almost. It was this rush. And I loved it. And so I stayed with it. And about 2 years later, I moved to San Francisco, and that's where I got the job with Learn It. And the dot-com industry was exploding. And so what Learn It gave me the opportunity to do was learn how to be extremely agile and adaptable to the point where first HTML was blowing up. And so then Damon's like, "Okay, quick, you got to learn HTML." So I'm learning HTML and teaching that. And then, a few weeks later, Dreamweaver is released. Okay, you got to learn that. You got to go teach that. And so there was so many new products coming out that it forced me to learn how to learn. And that's what really set me on this trajectory of turning this job into a career, into a passion, into a calling, because I had to learn how to learn my way. And what I learned is one of my skill sets is learning my way, because then I can disseminate it and I can explain it back in a way that other people can understand. And so from there, I've just stayed in the field. And like I said, it turned from a career to a passion to a calling. And 25 years later, I'm still in this field. It's an amazing field, what we do every day.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I think it's so relatable. And the common theme from kind of learning and development professionals is like, okay, we just want to add value. We want to educate, we want to teach, we want to, and everybody has a different story. And that's why I love this as a first question. And I relate personally as well because I was also very much felt like a loser, honestly, in my high school, barely graduated, went to community college, worked at Subway. So, really kudos to all the people working in fast food. I've done that for many years in different
Mhm.
places, and I always say it built my character.
Mhm.
It really did. But yeah, it's so relatable. And then fast forward to today and the things that you're doing. I mean, you're a keynote speaker at DevLearn coming up in November this year, which is huge. It's a big event in our space. You're just in general, you speak quite a bit on these topics and so on. And your latest book, The Trusted Learning Advisor, I really want to dive a little bit into it because I think based on your story and what you just said, I feel like it's a natural that you wrote this book and your whole idea of like shifting from order taken to advisor to like talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So not to do a self promo. So the Trusted Learning Advisor was actually the first book, and then Hidden Value
Ah,
is the
that's
second
why.
book that came out about 2 or 3 months ago. So taking a step back to the Trusted Learning Advisor, this was an important book for me because I really wanted to share my experience over the 18 years or so that I had at that point where I was writing this, because I had been an order taker for the majority of my career. And I had just started to break through evolving past that. And I wanted to share everything that I had been learning and doing so that others could evolve as well. And so when we think about moving from order taker to strategic business partner, a trusted learning advisor, here's what I would share with the audience. The first move, it's not about just jumping right into any new processes or frameworks or anything like that. The first move is taking a step back and being reflective. And it's looking honestly at your maturity and your credibility, but across four dimensions. So the four dimensions that I look at is, first of all, I start with the organization. Does the organization have a learning culture? Is L&D supported from the top down, or are you literally swimming against the current? You've got to figure out, where does my organization stand? Do they even want me to be trusted learning advisors? Then you look at the next layer down, and those are your stakeholders. Do your stakeholders want you to evolve? Because I have worked with a number of stakeholders that didn't. They wanted me to stay in this box and be just an order taker. Or is your stakeholder more comfortable with you evolving? And have you prepared them for this shift? Then you move to your next level down, which is your team, the group that you're working with. Do they have the depth of expertise? Do they have the business acumen? Do they even have the confidence to step into that advisory role? And then lastly, and the most important reflection, is you. What's your level of maturity and your level of readiness? And so if there's one skill or strategy that I encourage all L&D practitioners to focus on, it's starting with credibility. Credibility, because before anybody can see you as a trusted learning advisor, you have to ask yourself, what have I done to earn this credibility? Because it's not just given because of your job title. And why should my stakeholder listen to me when I'm telling them something, when I'm trying to encourage them that their solution isn't actually the solution? I'm trying to advise them. Why should they even listen to me? Until that credibility is established, you're always going to be pulled back to being an order taker. So to go back to your question, I sum it up with the shift. It doesn't happen with a new program or marketing. It happens with how you show up. And before you show up, you've got to be reflective on those four levels to figure out what's the maturity, what's the readiness, and what have you done to earn that credibility.
Mm. I actually really like that because it's so practical and it's like a roadmap if you want to think it that way. I had a friend who was kind of a one-woman show in a small company where she was brought in to kind of develop the learning culture. And the company wasn't really a learning organization. And to your point of credibility, it took her about 2 years to actually build that credibility. And I mean, people were supportive, but nice. Like the company is nice. Don't get like it wasn't any pushback. The company is nice, but people were supportive. But still, that credibility, it felt like it took a turn after 2 years because at 2 years, because it takes time to showcase
Does.
change, especially right, and like and especially if you're a one-woman show. So when you're speaking, that story comes to mind, and I think
It doesn't
that's
happen
yeah.
overnight. But to your
No,
point,
no.
that's an important context to consider. For example, at GM, it took us about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
4 years to start to change the perspective of how they viewed not just me, but the entire team. So just want to reinforce, this is not, I'm going to read a book, I'm going to take a class, and then all of a sudden things are going to change. This is change management where it takes time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's I think because we want to make change, we want to make it happen fast, and we're like we see all the potential, and it's like, and you have to wait for other people to join you on that train, you know? What if you find yourself, in a situation where you're like, okay, this is not a learning organization, maybe you are a one woman, a one man show in your company. Like, what do you recommend to those people, learning and development professionals?
Besides reading the Trusted Learning Advisor and Hidden Value, the question that you truly have to ask yourself is, how long am I going to try to roll this boulder up a hill with a spoon, as the metaphor
Mm,
goes? And for me, I've left several organizations because I tried for several years to make that change, and I realized it is not going to change. And I'm just wasting my energy and I'm getting burnt out in the process when I have passion, I have experience, I have this desire to drive the change and to have learning be something that's truly seen as valuable. Not every business, every organization, every firm wants that or may be ready for it. So maybe it's not that they don't want it, but they may just not be ready for it. So you have to ask yourself, is that a place where you want to stay and potentially burn yourself out? Or do you want to look for a place that is open to receiving your gifts?
mm. You talk a lot about also about this hidden value of learning and development. Unpack that a little bit for me.
So when I talk about hidden value, I'm naming the impact of learning that's there, but it too often goes unseen because we're not capturing it. We're not telling the story of it. We're not connecting it to what the business really cares about. Leaders, they don't wake up asking, how many courses did we run? How many butts were in seats? How many hours did people spend taking? They care about retention. They care about growth. They care about customer experience and resilience. And we influence all of those. But unless we reveal that connection, then ultimately the value remains hidden. And so that's really what hidden value is based on. I frame it around the value creation compass and the four C's. And so the compass gives us the language of the business because we have to evolve from using our own L&D language. No one cares about Kirkpatrick or level three or ROI or what an LXP is or an LMS. They care about people, resilience, business growth, and customer value. And so that's how the value creation is compass is created is through those four directions or four capabilities, if you will. And so it forces us to stop thinking about learning as an activity, but instead ask which one of these outcomes, north, south, east, or west, actually delivers influence, delivers value that is meaningful to our stakeholders. And so, practically speaking, it means instead of just sending a dashboard of completions, you actually capture the client's story. Where, like for us, we run this program called Speak with Impact. It's a new program that we created about executive presence, showing up, speaking confidently, comfortably. And so rather than telling how many people went through it, which was 200 this year, I tell about the stories of the partners who have had or won new business based on it, who have come back to say, I feel more confident when I show up to represent the firm. I let them tell the story of success rather than me trying to tell it. And so the compass is a tool that you can actually bring to your stakeholder and use in a discussion with them to jointly decide where should you be focusing when we're talking about value. What's the most important aspect of it to you? Is it organizational resilience? Is it customer value? Is it growth? Or is it the people?
Mm. When you speak about organizational resilience, go a little bit deeper into that.
Change is happening faster than ever. It's happening exponentially. That means organizations have to be able to evolve along with it. If the organization doesn't evolve, they're going to be extinct. If you think back to COVID, we became popular all of a sudden, almost overnight, when the company had a Zoom. And no one really knew what Zoom was. If you weren't in L&D and you hadn't
Right.
facilitated, largely, with all of a sudden we got a Zoom. I don't know what Zoom is, but we need to Zoom because everybody's at home and we got to keep things moving.
Yes.
And so we jumped in, we helped our organization adjust and shift. If you ask anybody in L&D about their organization, they typically always use the word transformation. We're going through a transformation. And I say that half jokingly, but we're all transforming. We are all evolving. Organizations have to evolve. Who are the ones that are working behind the scenes to support the most important resource or asset, which is the people, to help them evolve, to help them build agility, adaptability, resilience? Because without the people evolving, the organization isn't going to evolve. So when I talk about the resilience of the organization, what we're talking about is people. And L&D is such a driver in organizational resilience. It could be from a change management perspective. It could be from a new culture initiative that's going through the organization. We support
Mm.
so many aspects of the organization in this evolution, but we often don't think of it in that lens. And so we don't talk about it in that lens.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because I think it's, as L&D professionals, we're our own worst critics usually, and we're like, and we don't see the value. And I think that resilience piece is so important, especially with everything that's happening in the markets and the job market and the world of work and all of that jazz. Like it's so important to remember that we're beyond, whatever AI can do for us. Like there's so much more that we bring to the table as professionals. And on that point, as we evolve and with all these different tools and AI coming in, how do you see this evolving? How should L&D evolve? Because there are a lot of our, fellow professionals that are really nervous. And I speak and I attend as well in different webinars on these topics. And people are, there's the excited group, and then there's more of people who are just a little bit fearful. So what do we do with that?
I don't like to make any predictions, per se. I mean, no one knows what's
Sure.
going to happen. But the path that I'm going down and the path that I encourage others to go down is we have to evolve ourselves. And that may mean that as much as L&D or training, the name convention itself needs to evolve. If we met on the street and you said, "What do you do?" I wouldn't say I'm in L&D. I would tell you I solve problems for organizations. I happen to use learning and development as one of my tools to solve a lot of the people challenges in the organization. What I'm doing there is I'm shifting the narrative. Rather than staying in this box that says,
Mm,
I'm just in L&D, I'm just in training, I'm just in learning, I'm expanding outside of that. Organizations are going to always have problems. As long as there's people around and there's evolution and there's customers and there's everything, they're going to have problems that need to be solved. I'm always going to have a job because I can pivot. I
hmm
want my team to be able to pivot. I want our industry to be able to pivot. Is L&D as we know it today going to be around and necessary in 5 to 10 years? I don't know. But what I do know is problems will be around. And so we have to evolve the way that we think of ourselves. We can't just say, I'm just an instructional designer. I'm just an LMS administrator. I would say half of what I do is actually not learning and development, traditional learning and development. A lot of it is coaching conversations. It's listening and learning about my stakeholders. It's spending time with my learners to understand what some of their challenges are. A lot of the work that we do isn't, like I said, the traditional L&D, but I'm still able to solve problems. One of the biggest value propositions that we offer is we are connectors. We are one of the few service lines that can truly look holistically across the entire organization rather than just being stuck in this siloed piece of only seeing this much. When we open up our blinders, we can make those connections to say, you know what, I hear this stakeholder talking about this problem. Well, this service line actually has a similar problem. I can't solve that problem, but I can connect you. We
mm,
talked earlier at the opening about our orbit and the resources and the people that we know and our connections. For me, my network is probably one of my most valuable assets. I don't know how to solve half the stuff that comes up, but someone in my network does. And so I have stakeholders now that come to me with problems that have nothing to do with learning and development because they know that I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to try to help them solve it. Even if I can't solve it, I'm going to get them a vendor, I'm going to get them an expert, I'm going to get them somebody in my network to help solve it. So when they decide, let's get rid of L&D, it's no longer needed, I'll still be around because I'll be solving different problems. So that's what I want for us is to evolve this thinking of getting outside of this traditional box of learning and development and job titles to just thinking broader and bigger about value. At the end of the day, the future is about value creation. And so we have to be value creators, value seekers, measuring value. When we do that, we're not going to have to worry.
mm. I love this reframe from title X to just solving problems. And if as you're speaking, I was like, he's so spot on because most problems in organizations, like 95% of them are about people. If you think about it, like
People, processes,
yeah, exactly. And that's a lot. And, L&D professionals usually have some kind of skill set. And to your point, if you don't, you can always tap into your network, which is why I love this space because it's so collaborative. And, we don't
Mhm.
know what we don't know. We don't have to know everything. And that's where the power of network and collaborations come in. I love that. If you're a young professional, maybe a mid-level professional right now in L&D, entering the workforce, or just looking, trying to navigate this space, like what are the top two things they should be thinking about?
Value, being
Hmm
value creators, value seekers. And I just talked about that, so I don't want to waste time on that piece. I would say the other piece is understanding that what we do, there's actually a science behind it. And I did not know this for, gosh, I don't know, 15 years of my career. There's learning sciences. There's science of learning. I thought that learning was the LMS, that you go and you just complete this and boom, that was learning. And eventually I learned about elaboration, generation, learning transfer, interleaving, spaced retrieval. Everyone who calls themselves an L&D practitioner or professional, whether you're new, whether you've been here 20 years, you should have a thorough understanding of the science of learning. If you're not familiar with it, the best book that I can recommend is called Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning. I have nothing to do with the book. I don't get any kickback from it, but was revolutionary for me to understand those 5 characteristics for the science of learning, because so many people aren't rooting what we're doing in the science of learning. They're just reading something, or they saw something on a TikTok, or even learning, what do you call them? Learning conferences. It
Hmm.
sometimes spread a lot of misinformation. If we just focused on rooting everything in the science of learning, we would actually be doing good learning. Read the book, make it stick, and then also make sure you read Hidden Value.
Absolutely, yeah, the hidden value for sure. I'm curious in your opinion. So, one of the biggest, like when we think about learning, and yes, there's a science behind it, but yet it's still one of the biggest challenges that we address in companies is like, how do we actually, create behavior change? So as we are introducing all these, sometimes I feel it's too many tools we're introducing because then we don't know what to do with all these tools, whether it's AI coaching, whether it's, I don't know, another cool LMS,
Yep.
I don't know, name yours. Like, what do you, if you were, if you're running a company and you choose like one tool that you, I don't know if you want to be biased by one tool or two, but like, what is the one or two things that you would focus on as an N&D professional to truly change behavior in organization? So maybe it's not a tool, maybe it's a strategy. I don't know, anything.
It's controversial, or could be controversial, but I'll share what I'm doing right now. I am pulling back from all of the tools and I'm starting to slowly build up. And we're starting first with in-person or virtual live human-driven coaching sessions. And
Mm,
I'm spending more time with my learners. Now, when you have an organization that has hundreds of thousands of individuals, it's not as easy. And so I want to give this little footnote that everything I'm sharing needs to be contextualized, contextualized to your situation, your organization. There's no one size fits all. So I guess going back to your previous question, that's something that I would share with everyone in L&D, but especially the new individuals. There's no one size fits all. You can't go to a conference and see something and think, okay, that's going to work for me. What worked at HSBC for me didn't work at General Motors. What I did at Archwell couldn't have worked at General Motors. What I'm doing now at BDO could never have worked before. Instead, along the way, I've learned all of these tools that we have available, and I have them in my toolkit, and I've learned how to use which tool for which problem for which time. So you have to find the right tool to solve the right problem at the right time for your context. All of that being said, for me at BDO, I have the luxury that, and it is a bit of luxury, I think, where we get to focus a lot on live instructor-led coaching and training. And so we're right now building a healthy relationship with our learners, with our stakeholders, so that they can trust us. I have an e-learning library. I'm not going to say a name. It's a very extensive library, but I don't push it because I wouldn't go there to learn. So if I'm not going to this e-learning library, why am I going to send other people there? What we're doing is we're curating content from it. There's like, I don't know, 50,000 courses in there, but they're not all good. And so my team knows that if we're going to have any sort of e-learning sustainment or pre-course that we require or recommend, our team has had to have taken it and signed off that yes, this represents our brand. Rather than the first time, I think of it like regular customer experience. The first time you go somewhere and you have a bad customer experience, there's so many options available, you're not going back. So the first time one of our learners goes and takes a crap course, they're not going to trust us anymore. So right now we're building up that trust, we're building up the brand and our credibility so that when we require or recommend or offer a program, we have people coming knowing that they're going to get the best experience possible. So I
mm,
know there's a lot of fancy tools out there, but for me, I'm pulling it back. I'm focusing on human first. And then if I had to say a tool, the tool is Gen AI. I think Gen AI is such an amazing democratizer for how we learn. I'm learning every day on there. It's open in the background. I'm learning constantly, and I want others to be able to learn. It's that in the flow of work, real-time coach you have available to you.
Mm. I tend to agree. So interesting enough, I was on a webinar recently, and one of the questions to the panel was what value, how do you prove value with AI? Like that was the question. And I actually said something very similar to what you just said. I said I wouldn't even spend value on AI. I would actually build relationships with my clients, with my customers, to your point, because customer service is just horrible across board. And there's so many tools, and I've used a lot of them as a practitioner. And you spend so much money on these tools, and then you can't even get the support that you need. So it's a useless tool to me at that point. And I totally agree. And I think with the evolution of technology and everybody wants to be online, and I think we're losing this human touch, and I think people are going to want more of the community, more of that true human to human interactions, and I think that's going to distinguish companies and people that are in this space compared to those that are just kind of outsource everything to technology and AI and trying to scale and all of that, which is fine. There's a place for that, but yeah, I think as we move forward, wherever this is going with AI, I think that human interaction, and that's how because also there's a overflow of information, and sometimes you
Mhm.
learn best from other people and like in conversation. Otherwise it's just too much. You can't even comprehend everything that's out there. So I love that approach, and I love what you said about the contextualize what it means to you, because a lot of people go to conferences, myself included, right? And you get so excited about a tool and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be awesome. You bring all this stuff back and you're so excited about the tool and introducing it that you forget to pause and think, is it going to actually work? So I
Yeah,
love that. I think it's
I cannot count how many implementation failures we've had because someone had the idea, whether it's IT, whether it's HR, L&D, that this is the tool that we need, and no one bothered to find out from the learners, is this what they want or need, and is this going to work in your organization? I worked for a big Fortune 500 company, I don't want to say the name, and they wanted to implement an LXP, and I kept saying, why are we doing this? There's no problem that this is solving.
Mhm.
Tell me what problem this is solving because now we're sending, long story short, abysmal take-up rate. Abysmal. They spent years trying to put people to there, sending them to there. It was like, but why? That's
Mhm.
not in their flow of work, and they didn't ever want it to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no, it's very refreshing to hear this perspective. I really appreciate it. So you got DevLearn coming up. What else are you up to for the rest of the year? What are you excited about? Where can people see you live, I guess?
Here in this
Yeah.
session.
Yes.
Dev learned podcast. I would say that's what I'm looking forward to the most. Is for me, it's a really high point in my career. I've always respected Dev Learn, and I'm honored that they asked me to be the keynote speaker this year. I would say for this year, it's just continuing to talk about my babies. Baby number
Mm-hmm.
one, hidden trusted learning advisor, and baby number two, hidden value. And I think what's important for people to know, maybe not, but I'm gonna share anyway. When you write a book, you don't make money from it. So me talking about this is in no way trying to get sales to somehow make money. Maybe it's $1 a book or something like that. It
Mm-hmm.
is I get asked all the time, what's your thoughts, your perspective, your experience? I'm like, it's literally all in the book. I have shared everything I've ever been through is there in a practical way so that you can apply it. These are not thought leader books where it's philosophy and theory. This is exactly what I'm doing right now. In fact, Hidden Value, a lot of that is based on the massive success that I've had at BDO. I'm having the best time of my career at this firm. I love the culture that they're allowing us to create. And so I'm sharing the models that are in there. So check out the books.
Beautiful. I'll make sure to include both of them in the show notes. And if people want to reach out or follow you, where do you hang out at the most?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great place.
Awesome. Dr. Keith, thank you so much. It's been a long time coming. I'm grateful for this conversation. I knew it was going to be great, and I've definitely learned, and it was a great one. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.